Welcome to Navajo County Connection. I'm your host, Dawnafe Whitesinger, Supervisor for District 5. Today, our guest is Bryan Layton, Assistant County Manager. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Today, we're talking about something that I think a lot of the nation is talking about, is ARPA funding. And so what is ARPA funding? What does that mean for our county?
Sure. So to start with, ARPA means the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. It's a bill that was 135 pages long. But basically what it does is it provides stimulus funding to local governments and other entities to help combat the economic impacts of the pandemic. The county received about $21 million. And the unique thing about this is it's one-time funding, meaning it's not going to come back year over year. Mm-hmm. It's a one-time funding that then we can decide what to do with it. So it's really an incredible opportunity to do something very meaningful in our communities.
I know that, the county certainly we're special in being able to receive the funding, but we're not that special because there are a lot of other entities who've been impacted as well. Who is that in our region?
Yeah, exactly. Funding went to all of our local cities and towns, as well as the tribal entities in our region as well. So everyone got an allocation. And there's some parameters that guide how the money can be used. But for the most part, each community can decide and really evaluate what's important to them, what are their biggest priorities, and decide how they can best address those with this one-time funding.
Mm-hmm. It's an exciting time for our communities. Certainly, we haven't seen these types of dollars being able to use for a variety of projects. Maybe they're things that we needed or things that we were hoping to be able to accomplish. So when we think about ARPA and the impact to the county, let's talk about first the process. What did that look like to be able to determine how are we going to spend these dollars?
Yeah. So we, as staff and the board, we met several times, right, to really talk about this. It is a lot of money, and we wanted to make sure that we got it right. So from our early discussions, as we talked about all the different possibilities, it became quickly apparent that $21 million isn't a lot of money. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be enough to do everything that we would want to do. And I know that seems kind of silly to say $21 million is not enough money, but when you look at all the different possibilities, we knew that we'd have to be very selective, and there'd be a lot of really great projects and really great ideas that we just wouldn't be able to tackle because the funding just couldn't stretch out that far. So as staff, that was kind of daunting for us to look at and try to build a framework for that discussion. Mm-hmm. How was that for you as a board member when you looked at it and saw that responsibility of $21 million? How did you approach that personally, and what were your thoughts starting out?
I think, when we think about just the responsibility of Board of Supervisors, that, it's our responsibility to be the fiscal keepers, in a sense, of the county dollars and those taxpayer dollars that come to us. And approaching it with the same lens was so important to make sure that we were following the law and being able to make sure that we were spending those dollars appropriately, that we were prioritizing the highest impact need, and that we were being transparent about how is the funding going to be used. Because it's so important to make sure that in the things that I was thinking about, making sure that we were there were opportunities for the public to be aware of what that looked like. So, there was a lot. And I think that the complete Board of Supervisors really approached it that way. So some of those things that kind of helped us were some guiding principles. And what does that mean? What were those guiding principles?
Yeah, those were really helpful as we looked at the different projects. I think immediately from those discussions, it was very apparent that we wanted to select projects that were sustainable, that were affordable. We didn't want to create new projects that when the money ran out, those projects ended, right? We wanted things that would endure. We wanted to leverage funding from other partners. All of our partners, our city, towns, our tribal entities receive funding too. We saw that as a great opportunity to leverage together and tackle projects. And we also wanted to see where we could create the most benefit for the most people in our region. And so with those principles in place, that was really the framework that we looked and began evaluating each of the idea submissions that came in.
So when we think about, I guess, certainly the priorities, there were several different priorities, and looking at partnership and looking at economic impact and so forth. So we found that the largest impact would probably be broadband. And why did we come to that, or what was that like?
Yeah, that was something that's been on the county radar for a long time, in an area where the county can take a real leadership role. So the lion's share of funding went to broadband, and then as we moved from that, we really started looking at, well, what other projects really impact countywide and really impact the most people and our partners. We looked at our public health facilities. We saw a tremendous need to expand those and be able to expand their capabilities. We saw a great need in our public safety communications network. Mm-hmm. And also we looked at how we delivered county services, and that we needed to improve in that. We needed to modernize those and make e-commerce a much more integral part of how we deliver services to the community. With that, then after really looking at county-wide projects, we were able to drill down and through a lot of partnerships, do more neighborhood-specific projects, like a new walking trail system and non-motorized trail system in the Snowflake Taylor area, the inclusive park and splash pad in Show Low, our libraries, our senior centers. So a lot of different support in different areas, and also some support to transitional housing, nonprofits in our region as well. So a lot of exciting projects, but again, yes, the lion's share of that did go to broadband. Mm-hmm. And broadband, I guess an easy way to look at it is the broadband, the capacity, the flow of broadband to our area, if you'd imagine it kind of like a straw, of how much can flow through a straw, right? And we want to expand that straw to something, gigantic that can really handle a lot of traffic for uploading, downloading, for commerce, for education, and just residents' use.
Mm-hmm. I think, when we think of broadband, certainly an important infrastructure to invest in. Initially we might think of just internet, but just as you mentioned, that it's so much more important than just being able to provide the internet to those of us who might be using it. It allows communication to open up between public safety personnel. It allows for health facilities to be able to upload and access health charts, or being able to telecommunicate or provide teleservices. Economic infrastructure, there are so many reasons that broadband becomes so important to our region. And so it's not just a tiny investment. It is certainly a long-term investment that'll impact our region for many years to come. So I think that's really important for us to be thinking about. So when we think about one of those things, public safety communication, that's one of the areas that we also are investing in. What does that look like?
Yeah, and that's probably the project that I'm most excited about. We have an aging analog radio system that the Sheriff's Department uses to coordinate, and also our Emergency Management Department, and to coordinate not only internally, but with other agencies. And with the terrain here, the mountains, the canyons, the valleys, there's a lot of areas that analog radio just does not reach. It doesn't work. And so this investment will really bring that up and modernize and update our public safety communications. It brings in analog technologies, digital technologies, cellular technologies. We're going to put a lot of new equipment on radio towers to make sure that deputies have good coverage throughout the county. But I think one of the most important things is that regional approach, right? So with this new technology, in an emergency, the Sheriff's Department will be able to kind of bring everyone together so everyone can communicate and coordinate activities. So it does not matter if a city, a town, or a tribal entity or the state comes in. It doesn't matter what technology they're using. We'll be able to incorporate everyone together so everyone can communicate and coordinate response to that emergency. So we're really excited about that.
It is an exciting investment. I think one of the things that came up in the conversation was that during the pandemic, there was a 2-hour kind of blackout where public safety personnel were not able to communicate with each other. And that becomes, we live in a fairly large community where there are definitely needs in responding to a 911 call, or there's an emergency and so forth. And so this allows for that constant communication and for us to be more effective at being able to provide communication mechanisms with other organizations, tribal or non-tribal. So that is really exciting. I think one of the, we talked a little bit about the small projects or the community-based projects. Is there anything else that, stands out that we should be talking about?
Well, I think the support that we're providing to our local nonprofits is really important. Much like the rest of the nation, we struggle with housing options, right? Mm-hmm. Housing prices just seem to be going up and up, and they're not coming down. And that can make it really difficult for folks who are struggling to find housing, especially if they're going through a life situation that's presenting more and more challenges for them. And so using these ARPA funds to provide support to our local nonprofits who are doing great work in our communities, helping to find transitional housing, semi-permanent housing for some of our most vulnerable residents at a time of great need in their lives, I think is really neat and really important to helping our entire community.
Yes, I really think so. And I'm, when we think about the future, certainly we want to make sure that we are not forgetting the most vulnerable populations, that we're accounting and being able to create opportunities for them to be able to have resources. So that was a great partnership, and we look forward to being able to see the end of that project. So when we think about the projects, certainly there are a variety of them. What does the timeline look like for implementation?
So according to the ARPA guidelines, the money needs to be spent by 2024. If you're doing a capital project, the funds need to be encumbered and everything ready to go. And then the final funds have to be spent by 2026. So that gives us a little bit of time, but it's fun to see how excited folks are to receive this funding and to get going. For example, our sheriff's office, I met with them last week, and they are off to the races. They're purchasing equipment. They're not wasting any time getting going with theirs and starting to modernize and update equipment for their radio network. Mm-hmm.
That is really exciting. Yeah, making the steps forward, and I know our community will be just as excited because we want to see what's happening. How is this being implemented? How is this going to affect me and my community? How is it going to affect my neighbors or my children and so forth? So if people want to stay engaged and find out what's happening with the ARPA dollars, how can they do that?
Yeah, we're really excited to be able to share progress. So if you follow the county on our social media pages, is at Navajo County, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We're going to be showing a lot of updates, not just when the project's completed. We want to let people see all the behind the work that's going to go into all these projects, meet some of the people that are doing this great work in our communities. Mm-hmm. So please follow us, and we'll keep updating our pages so you can see and kind of see that progress along with us.
That's great. I think, that gives everybody a visible opportunity to be able to say, wow, that's a great thing that's being invested in our community. I think one of the things that was important in thinking about the partnerships, that we get to be able to partner with a variety of communities, and we have $21 million to do that. But when we look at partnerships, how does that impact us?
Yeah, partnerships played a huge role in this. So what's exciting is that we have our allocation of $21 million. By working and collaborating with whether it's the cities, towns, our tribal partners, our nonprofit partners, looking for grant monies, we can augment, kind of leverage our $21 million. We've planned that to go along with another $18 million. So in total, we've turned our $21 million, we've leveraged that into about $42 million worth of projects for our communities.
I think that's a smart way to do it. When we live in a small region, we have several communities that we're able to impact. that if we can work together in being able to increase the capability of those dollars, that's a win for everybody. And, there are great things that are going to be invested in. We talked a little bit about that, the playground, or what is it called? The inclusive
it's an inclusive park and a splash pad.
Inclusive park and splash pad. So, for our special needs population, for the city of Show Low to invest in that, and we'll have people from all over the region who will be able to come and visit. So there's a lot of good things, and I'm excited to see those dollars go to work for us and to be able to invest in our community, and that we haven't had this capability. And certainly, when we think about broadband, again, it's not just something that we're creating more opportunity for us to watch Netflix at a quicker pace, which will be nice, but it's also, how do we invest in the economy of our community and making sure that we can draw larger businesses, or even supporting the local businesses that we already have. So there's a lot of good stuff there. So thank you for joining us, Bryan. Is there anything else that you want to add?
Absolutely. Well, again, we're excited. We're excited for the community's partnership and the partnership with all of our cities and towns. And again, I'll put a plug, follow us at Navajo County to stay informed and come on this journey with us. We're excited.
Well, thank you. Yes, come on this journey with us. We would certainly appreciate the feedback. We appreciate the enthusiasm, and we're so grateful to be able to have the opportunity to be able to invest in our community. Thank you, Bryan. I appreciate you joining me today.
Absolutely.